Neil, yeah, you're coming from a posterior approach world,
Yeah.
and you recently come over to anterior approach. Do you feel like your post-op films, do you like the way they look better now with anterior approach versus when you were doing posterior, or you were
Great
pretty
question, John.
accomplished?
I think one of the first things I noticed, and this was 7, 8 years into practice. So after a couple of thousand posterior approaches, including all my revisions, and what I noticed is that I had a tendency to put my cup a little bit lower than where I wanted the hip center to be on a posterior approach. Where I thought my landmarks were intraoperatively where the transverse acetabular ligament was, I was tucking the cup in underneath it. And I'd look at my x-ray and it looked a little bit more like the x-ray on the right, where that hip center looks like it's a touch lower.
Right.
And I think the anterior approach has given me appreciation of how to make sure my hip center is spot on perfect. And I think that most leg length discrepancy actually comes from our hip center not being perfect, because you can recut the calcar 10 times and make it exactly 6 millimeters or whatever you templated to, regardless of approach. And you can make that perfect. So I think most of that leg length comes from that discrepancy comes from the socket. So I think my x-rays have started looking way better on the acetabular side, and they're much more reproducible. And I think it's easier for me to teach residents and fellows to say, where do you want to put this cup? Especially if you're using x-ray with an anterior approach and you get some feedback in the OR.